bashing each other to bits.
She's got a bit of a smirk to her. Apple. Now, before we go through this different, obviously they're going to take us into game in a minute. AJ, talk to me a little bit about Discordia. Who is she? What is she about?
Well, Discordia.
Why does she carry an apple?
So, or the goddess of discord. It's a little redundant. So another word you could use is strife. Right. Discordia, goddess of strife. And really, what she does is she goes around turning people against each other. She really just enjoys violence, and she enjoys people fighting, and there constantly be a struggle. She doesn't want things to ever stay, solidified.
So she's like me. That's great. Okay.
Yeah, she would be slamming people on Twitter nonstop.
That sounds right.
If she was living today. And she has a great bit of fun while she does these things. So in her lore, there's one especially notable story where the gods were having a wedding with some very high-profile mortals. Discordia was not invited because of her, unruly nature. She's generally kind of difficult to be around. She wasn't invited. She was not happy about that.
Sounds like me.
So she shows up to the party anyway, and she takes a golden apple and carves onto it to the fairest, or to the most beautiful, and throws it into the party and lets the gods start fighting over it. So, of course, they see this prize, and Athena, Aphrodite, and Hera are all like, oh, that's obviously for me. And hold up now.
They would. Yeah.
Hold up now. It might not. We don't know which one it's for. So Zeus designates a mortal, Paris, to be the decider.
Like Zeus, you just say he's like, nope, nope, nope.
Yeah, Zeus is like, I'm going to stay out of this. That's a human. Good point. Yeah, let's get this human. And we'll see how poorly this goes for poor human. But he's like, okay, this guy will be the decider. So the goddesses try to persuade him through different ways. Hera was like, give you power over nations, and Athena was like, I'll make you the smartest, most wise, general ever. And Aphrodite goes, I'm going to give you the most beautiful woman in the world as your wife. And he takes that option.
Okay.
That sounds pretty good.
And that was not the right option, because that was actually Helen of Troy that was now already married and started the Trojan War. So Discordia did not get invited to a party, and the results were war that completely annihilated an entire civilization. Yeah.
Okay.
And she thought that was hilarious.
Well, we got a little look at that in game then. I guess we should start going through the abilities. First of all, I guess mage.
Mage.
Looks like a mage. I love the floating animation, by the way,
so
with the movement. That looks great.
Discordia, Roman, mage, goddess of strife. Those are her key bullet points.
Why has she got a picture of herself as her passive area?
So this is her passive. So when we were brainstorming this god, we just had so much fun with coming up with ideas for turning people against each other.
Right.
And we wanted there to be competition and struggle and strife. And we're going to have some amongst your enemies, but also amongst your allies.
No, she's going to affect... Okay.
So her passive is called Contest of the Gods.
Right.
And whoever on Discordia's team has current top damage, so you could use your T-screen there to tell.
Yeah.
Or you can see Discordia's passive meter.
Yes.
Is going to get a passive power buff.
From Discordia.
That scales per level from Discordia.
Oh.
So if you are on Discordia's team, and whoever one god at a time can have only one god at a time can have the power buff.
Okay.
So if your assassin's doing really well, they might have the Discordia buff. You can see those extra purple swirls floating around her. Those will move to the other god and leave Discordia.
Gotcha. So you will see these passive purple around your character if Discordia's on your
But then
team.
it gets to be late game, and your hunter starts to catch up, fully itemized, start dealing damage. You'll see that buff move back to them. They'll get an extra boost. And if there's a couple people that are close, you'll be pulling it back and forth from each other the entire match. So there can only be one.
So it increases damage output for that character.
It's an item equivalently to an item power worth of buff that scales off of Discordia's level, so it scales up throughout the game.
Okay, so that's a passive. The first ability then is called Unruly Magic Fish.
That's right.
Tell me about Unruly Magic.
So first, let's take a look at the target here. What we can see is we got combining elements of two of our target types. Like we've got the ground targeter circle moving through the center, and we also have our line attack line to the outside. And then we have some extra stuff. So what we're doing here is you're actually firing a projectile that ends where the ground target circle is, but it will pass through and hit and damage every enemy in between. So you can use it as a lane clear tool, and then once it hits there in the spot where the circle is, it's going to fire out secondary projectiles in 6 directions. Now, 2 of those are in the direction that you're facing, and the opposite of the direction you're facing. That's right. So those projectiles, once they get out, they will bounce off of walls. Each one of them does about a quarter of the damage of the main projectile.
Okay.
But there are 6 of them, so you can technically do more damage with the secondary projectiles than you can with the initial projectile. You're also going to see So if they're small and they travel at such a speed that if you're facing it, they're relatively easy to juke. But if you fire behind somebody, then they have a choice to either face you and continue watching what you're doing, or turn to try to juke the projectiles and avoid the damage, and thus be facing away and be a little bit more vulnerable, unless you could potentially set them up with another ability.
And narrow corridor seems like a great place to use that ability.
Sure, because you're gonna even if those initial projectiles do miss, and if you hit right on the center, you can actually hit 5 or 6 times just from the initial fire. But even if they do miss in a narrow corridor where there are all those walls, they can bounce off and get a chance to hit on a bounce.
Okay, this is looking really cool. So
yeah, a lot of things going on, and this ability definitely has even some more nuances to it. You can throw it through walls, but the targeter itself will make sure it snaps to a legal target, so you don't deploy it inside of a wall.
That's cool.
But it will pass through and deal damage.
Okay.
You can also to note is that the warm up before it explodes does not deal more damage. So while it's bouncing, it's kind of turned off for a second and then turned back on.
Gotcha.
So you really have to hit with the initial pulse, and then you have time to kind of look and react and position yourself to watch out for those extra explosions. So it's just a really cool new type of shape for a mage range damage ability.
I can't get over the floating animation of it just wandering around. Strife is the second ability, AJ. Tell me a little bit about Strife.
This is her signature move, Strife. This is what Discordia does. And in her lore, she creates strife between people. So we translated that as most literally as we could into the game. So this ability is a unique targeter shape again. What it'll do is it'll deal burst damage after it deploys. It's got a pretty good deploy time. And then it'll deal bonus damage. If there's only one target in it, it'll root them.
Okay.
But if there are 2 gods or 2 minions, they will turn and fight each other and fight nearby allies. So,
so they'll focus like nearest target, or
they'll focus nearest target of the same type. Gods will attack gods, and minions will attack minions. Or jungle camps will attack each other too.
Really?
Jungle camp.
That's
yeah.
cool.
So you have to hit multiple people for the really big payoff and to see the madness effect, which we've only really used before on Circuit.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring the madness back. We thought that was extremely fitting to her lore and to her character, and even in the very early stages of planning gods, we have the CC that's pretty cool that is only on 1 god, and it's pretty hard to hit. So here it is here, and it is pretty difficult to catch 2 gods in there, but that's because it's a very powerful effect.
Sure.
It's going to turn your camera a little bit to the side, so you could toward your allies. It's going to CC you, effectively taunting or fearing you for a moment while you attack your allies.
Is that the overall length of that? Does it increase to the duration of the?
It is 1 second locked per all ranks.
Okay, so it's not going to increase or anything.
It is a little too strong for that.
And the root's around 1 second too.
The root is also 1 second in all ranks. So the CC is consistent here. What you just get is damage per scaling.
I like the fact that if you hit 1 target, you at least get some payoff for it, other than the damage. So
and even with just 1 target, it's actually a potent setup for the 1. So using that 2-1 combo is pretty useful.
It's nice, feels good 2-1 combo.
Okay, well, we'll move on to the next ability as well, because we've still got 2 more to go. Erratic behavior is the next one, Fish. Something tells me it's going to be erratic.
Sure, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So at its basic level, it is a root into a circle area that while she's in it, she stealths. You can see that. But there's actually a lot going on in here. While she's in there, she's stealthed. If she takes damage, she'll have the damage numbers above her, but she will not unstealth. If she fires and deals damage with her abilities, she will briefly reveal herself, but then go back into stealth as long as she's in that field. Also, while she's in there, her movement speed is increased, so she can kind of juke around within that confined space. So if you have like a Scylla Crush, you're like, well, you're going to be somewhere in here. There's nothing she can do. Yeah. But if you're doing like basic attacks in there or something, she can kind of juke around with that increased movement speed. Also, and kind of the signature point of this ability is that while she's there, if her 1 and her 2 are on cooldown, that cooldown decreases faster.
Look at those numbers go.
So the circle lasts for 5 seconds, and every half-second tick that she's in there, it reduces the cooldowns of her 1 and 2 if they're on cooldown by an amount that increases per rank. So you can use it. You can obviously use it defensively as an escape, as an avoidance tool, but you can also use it aggressively. Like, okay, I don't really care about the stealth because I'm going to keep revealing myself with my abilities. I just want my abilities to come back so I can put more power or more damage into the fight. If that's what you choose.
It doesn't. Obviously, I was just looking at that. It doesn't make the 3 get lower. In
Only
terms
the
of
1 and 2.
Stealth.
That's right.
Only
and not the ult either.
Well, not the ultimate either.
It's a very kind of unique take on a combo mage ability. So we had, kind of Thoth Wall, which had a little bit of his positioning firing through it, and we have things like Agni Fumes This is one that's a little bit, it's not as forced, like you don't need to use it, but when you want to maximize your potential with it, you can do a lot of damage, and you can be firing your abilities very often.
That's interesting.
There's definitely a risk reward because you're sacrificing your escape to put in more damage. So,
and that's always the the payoff there of like, well, it is your escape, but you may get more damage out if you do that, or more control in the fight.
Maybe you won't have to escape if you can just murder them.
And although it's short range, it is fairly effective as an escape. You get the immunity frames as a true leap would. It is a leap, so it'll be it's a Willixable.
I'd say I was a little bit worried about it until I saw like the area is actually quite small. So like it's easy to hit a mage ability on top of that. Any sort of like mage ability. Even just think about an Agni Bomb or anything like that.
We've had some great playtests. Just a couple of days ago, we were playtesting. Pawn was jungling against me as I was playing Discordia, and I stealthed, and he Bastet catsed. And since I'm stealthed, all the cats didn't see me, so they just stood there.
Where'd you go?
And Pawn was like swinging in the circle trying to unstealth me.
Here. You can see the damage
eventually
numbers.
did. Yeah, the claws came back up, and he eventually did hit me and kill me. But for a moment there, we were in like this perfect dance of just trying to hide from each other. It was really fun. It's a really unique ability.
Well, I guess it's time to move on to the ultimate. And I see a picture of a golden apple. The ability is called Golden Apple of Discord. And you mentioned a golden apple about the lore. So I'm guessing, hello, Targeter.
So here it is, the Golden Apple of Discord.
What?
This is her signature, from her lore. This is her signature weapon, is her apple, and she holds this around. So for her ultimate, she's going to enlarge this apple and throw it in a line, and it's going to bounce.
That's scary music with it, too.
And it's got, all of her abilities have kind of these discordant note musical elements to them. So this ability does a couple things.
Oh, really?
First of all, it's got a completely new type of effect that we've never done before. So, and to go along with Discordia's theming, she turns people against each other, or whoever's got this apple clearly thinks they're the greatest.
Yeah.
They think they're the best. It's just to the best. So when you hit an enemy with this apple, it's going to deal damage.
Right.
It's going to put a AoE effect around them that is a delayed detonate damage.
Okay.
And it's going to force them.
Heart Bomb-esque?
Yes, kind of Heart Bomb-esque. And you want to make sure your allies stay away from you when you're doing that. So you want to get away from your allies. It makes you really insufferable to your allies. They will not like you if you're holding the apple. And it's also going to cause you to taunt spam emote. As you can hear the Odin.
Okay.
And it's also going to make you VGS. You're going to say I'm the greatest to your own team when you get hit by it.
So as soon as it hits one person, it won't keep rolling.
So what happens is it can detonate and spread one time.
Right.
So whoever's initially hit
is the one that's going to be targeted.
Is going to be the bomb. And if you are in the area, you just get a single target version applied to you that also does damage at the beginning and end. Gotcha. But it can't spread multiple times. So it's going to... We got damage. Right.
First person gets hit, they can hit second one.
You hear them taunting?
Yeah, I can. So this is if Circa and Cupid had a baby in terms of this ability.
And Hercules.
And Hercules.
And, oh no. They're all taunting.
They're all
and Hercules.
Greatest.
And is there anyone, I don't think there's anyone else who forces emotes. That's what I'm saying. That's the big.
That's the new tech.
It's very new, and it's, mostly for presentation, but it's fits the abilities theme of kind of whoever's holding the apple is like this complete narcissist that nobody wants to be around.
So it's just damage they take from it and then more damage after the fact.
Right. It's damage. It does have a bit of CC attached.
Oh, sorry. What was the CC?
So let me give over the just simple game designing effects without all the extra presentation.
Sure.
Bells and
A
whistles.
lot going on here.
Damage.
Yeah.
Initial. While you're afflicted by the apple, you are crippled and intoxicated.
Oh.
This is going to prevent you from doing anything too crazy as far as where the area is going to be. Right. You're going to have a little bit of your movement loss, but you won't be leaping away. So this makes your teammates have to avoid you. And then the same thing happens again. So it's damage, cripple, intoxicate, damage. And anyone who gets hit by it gets the same effects applied to them.
Can it juggle back and forth?
No. It can only spread one time.
Only the first person can possibly spread it.
Okay.
Everyone else just
so the
suffers
second
effects.
person who gets it can't pass it back to the first person.
Correct. There's no further. Only the see this one's AOE.
Yes.
The next one, single target. So it's the same effects, but AOE only the first hit.
That's great.
So you really, you want to be careful about this one. If you do get hit, your teammates might be blaming you.
And you can bounce it off walls as well around corners and things that we just saw. So.
And then you have the extra presentation flair of the taunt spam and VGS spam.
So it's Hercules Boulder mixed with Ricochet for the bouncing targeter onto a Cupid Heart Bomb that detonates just like a Circa Ultimate
with
one.
Intoxicate.
With Intoxicate from Bacchus, a cripple effect. Okay.
Hindu, at what point do we just call it a new ability instead of just
It
trying
is
to
a new
talk
abi-
about how many
No,
abilities
Alright,
it
so
is
if we
mine?
put these 12 things together, we can arrive at this thing.
I'm just trying to break it down of like what's all involved in this ability. That's all. It's crazy.
So like a cell phone is like a landline plus a walkie-talkie and a computer.
And a TV.
All rolled into one for the low price of.
So, and the little tiniest point to add on that, though, is so when you get hit by it, you say, I'm the greatest.
Yes.
And when you spread it, any gods who take the second hit will go, no, I'm the greatest.
That's because they have the golden apple.
Yeah, and then they'll be everyone will be taunt spamming the whole time if you get hit by it.
That's crazy. Well, it's definitely what Discordia does. That's for sure.
There you go.
We should have a listen into the. Oh, that was loud. Someone
Because
broke
it was
my
a
ears.
whole bunch of Odins doing their alt at once.
Well, I think it was ready for the voice pack, and then Pon decided.
Yeah, sorry, Pon. You can see the I'm the greatest, and then no, I'm the greatest.
Okay, let's have a listen in to the voice pack now for Discordia.
You little troublemaker. Strife will reign! I love watching them fight over me. None of your team respects you. You know that, right? You should let them die. Is that as hard as you can hit? I was hoping for more. A lot more. Last time I didn't get invited to the party, I started a war, so yeah. All the other gods and goddesses already hate me. What's a few more?
I think a lot of people are gonna hate
Fight, die, and fight and die over and over. I love it.
Now, she also has a other skin, which we should be able to go to momentarily. The recolored skin, which we always do release with a new god as well.
Of course. You got some darker colors
I like it.
and some pinks here.
Bright pink.
Like it.
To complement her theming of being, generally evil and turning people against each other, but having a great time while she does it. She
This
just
god
thinks
is
it's hilarious.
Um,
It's pretty crazy.
I mean, while we're looking at her when we go to the skin in game, obviously with how she's going to be,
oh, I like the comparison.
Yeah.
I feel like she could jungle some.
So yes, the way the one explodes, the
Yeah.
way you can place that on jungle clamps, it
Yeah.
does give her pretty good jungle clear, but the base projectile is also significantly lower
That's true.
than a lot of other mage damaging, so it's really not absurd.
Okay.
And that mini projectiles, increase their damage per rank, heavily on per rank with a very small bit of power scaling. So her early jungle clear is definitely strong, but I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like completely blows away other mages.
Okay. But mainly mid lane then, but she could jungle quite
Yes,
early.
she could. She mostly mid lane, but could jungle.
The match of the day normally comes out when the new god comes out, and it's just all Discordia. That's going to be hell.
Going to be an especially chaotic
That is
one.
gonna be hell.
Although they are always especially chaotic in those.
Yeah, but with that many apples going around, everyone's screaming about who's the best to go. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's gonna be,
yeah.
Gonna be a big
It's going to
one.
be intense.
This guy looks really interesting, very fun, and an exciting addition towards the mid lane. I guess we'll see how if she does get nerfed or get buffed. We'll find out as
I'm
always.
very
as time
interested to
goes on.
find out as well.
PTS. We were talking about. Do we know? Have we had a hard day yet? It could be soon.